Now, there's a small thing which definitely requires a little lesson of its own, and that is portfolio building. So going forwards, everything that you should do, you should be having some kind of document and record of. And there's kind of two different types of portfolios which I personally keep. The first one is kind of like a private portfolio, which makes it sound a lot more glamorous than it is. Essentially, it's just a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, I list out the client, the project, and any links to any kind of online records of that. For me, that goes back a full 9 years since I first started in digital marketing, working for a number of companies. The advantage for that is that, first of all, it's just a really nice little motivational tool, so that if you are feeling a bit down, you can go in there and you look at all the cool different projects you've worked on. The other thing is that it reminds you of all the cool and interesting projects you've worked on, which you might be able to use in the future just from bits that you remember. So keep a record of all the clients you work with and all the projects you work on as well. With all of this, it's really important as well to try and keep as many records as possible of the stuff you do. Now, that's a lot easier said than done in many cases, particularly if we're taking like social media posts, for example, which will disappear into the internet very quickly. The easiest way to do this is to try and store those things in offline documents. So if you have anything which is particularly web focused and is on an individual website, then I'd also recommend adding it into Wayback Machine, and I've added a link into that. That will store an online screenshot, as it were, in a vast archive, so that you can always refer to it in the future and it will look like the way it originally did. But as I say, that's a really useful thing that I can have, and so I can just look at all the cool things I have done over the years. The other portfolio is a traditional portfolio. Once you've been working with a client for, I would say, about 3 months, assuming everything is going well, at that point you should be in a position where you can feel comfortable enough to ask the client if you can essentially use their name. For me personally, by using their name, that means I can add their brand name and an image onto my portfolio section which exists on my website, and nothing more. From that, I have also written up a couple of client case studies, and again, you can shout about them on social media if they're happy for you to do so. The reason for that is, again, as we've been talking about expertise, I only feature the clients on my website which I want more of. Now, this sounds really unfair on some of the other clients that I really do like working with, but ultimately I found that over the last couple of years, I do prefer to work with bigger organisations who are also ambitious. Now, if another smaller client comes along, that might be a great stopgap for me. It might provide some really fun, interesting work, but ultimately I don't want to put that on the portfolio because I don't want any more of those clients coming in. A portfolio is the best way to demonstrate the type of clients that you're working with, and by having this on your website, it can act as a really strong validation about anyone who is looking at your website, whether or not they should contact you. By acting as an effective filter, it can also help reduce the number of inquiries which aren't going to go anywhere that potentially come through to you. So in both instances, make sure that you keep a record and keep a portfolio of the clients you are working with, because that will act as an invaluable record going forwards to help you succeed in the future.